All right. Good morning, financial professionals. Hi, I'm Preston French, Regional Vice President for E4 Insurance Services. Welcome you to the Brew Call today. Brew is short for Building Relationships Every Week. Thank you for tuning in today. For those of you joining Brew for the first time, we welcome you. We'd like to start the Brewcast by celebrating the day's national holidays. The first one is National Let's Laugh Day. So if you haven't laughed this morning, go ahead, tell yourself a joke, get that laugh out of the way. The second national day today is National Certified Nurses Day. So thank you for all the nurses out there. You all are on the front lines helping us out in that healthcare world. And then the third national day today is National Backyard Day. I know everybody's ready for warmer weather, grills, sunshine. So today is that day. If the weather's right, enjoy it. Today, we are continuing our March lineup focused around buy sales, and our special guest for today's call is none other than Dan Peterson, the President and Managing Partner at E4 Insurance Services, who will be discussing the three things every good buy-sale agreement should have and walk through E4's buy-sale risk calculator. We encourage you to use the chat box or raise a hand to ask questions at any time. So with that, again, Dan, thank you for joining us today. I know you've got some stuff to go over, maybe even a case study. So I'll just start this off with a question around buy sales, if that's all right with you.
That'd be great.
So the first question I have for you, Dan, common trigger events. So what are the most common trigger events included in buy sale agreements, and how do these events impact the continuity of a business?
Well, a well-structured buy-sell agreement is essential, Preston, for the continuity of a business, and also for the surviving beneficiaries of the business owner. There's some key things that I think we should be talking about today, and I'll share some of those with you if I can share my screen here. There's 7 different triggers that we would expect to see in a well-structured buy-sell agreement. And if I go over those with you here, the first is the death of an owner. And this is a primary trigger event, often requiring the use of life insurance proceeds to fund a buyout of a deceased owner's shares. But it's, as I'll show you, in an active case study that we have going right now, you don't always find clear language in the agreement. The disability or critical illness of an owner is a second trigger. So when an owner becomes disabled or critically ill, the agreement should provide for the purchase of the shares to ensure business continuity. Retirement or voluntary departure. What is going to happen with the shares and how will they be transferred? Divorce. Divorce obviously affects ownership, and agreements may include provisions to handle the situation of a divorce and how the business is valued. Then bankruptcy. If one of the partners or owners faces a bankruptcy, the agreement may allow other owners to purchase the shares to protect the business. If one of the partners attempts to sell to a third party, this can trigger a right of first refusal for existing owners. And then last, a breach of contractual or fiduciary obligations. What happens if one of the owners is a bad boy and does some things that maybe create a serious breach? And that could lead to the buyout of offending owner shares. So these are some of the common trigger events that we expect to see in a well-written buy-sell, Preston.
Yeah, I like that. And then number 2 kind of sticks out to me and kind of, I guess you could say, goes along with my next question. So the customization of agreements. We're not just talking about life. We're also talking about the disability of one of the owners. So how can buy-sell agreements be tailored to meet the specific needs and circumstances of different businesses and business owners?
Well, first of all, when it comes to disability, we'll go to that and make sure that it has a provision for it. I'm going to give you a case study. And I was asked just last month to review the insurance of 2 partners that formed a company in 2018. The company's worth about $4 million today. They've also taken on some debt that they've added, and they're 50-50 owners. And I'm going to make sure that you're seeing my screen here.
I see it.
Okay, this is their buy-sell agreement that came across our desk. And by the way, I reviewed this. I had my assumptions on it, but we have a great resource here in our advanced markets leadership with Ronnie Hamilton. He also reviewed it and was able to point out a few other things that I didn't even see in going through this. But I've reviewed a lot of buy-sell agreements in my 38 years in this industry, and some things stood out to me right away. And the provision, withdrawal or death of a member. So should a member, this was an LLC, die or withdraw from the company by choice, the remaining members will have the option to buy. Now, what does it mean in Tennessee if I tell you you have an option to buy? Does that mean that you have to buy? That you shall buy?
No.
So you and I are in business, and my wife, Annette, who has no interest whatsoever in the business, doesn't know how to sell life insurance or disability income, and you and I are in business together. If you have the option to buy her out, how does that leave her in a position going forward?
If he wants to be in the business, I guess it could go one or two ways, either really good or really bad.
Exactly. What would be a better position for her to be in? If this agreement were to say that you shall buy out the shares, my shares, so that she has the financial wherewithal, and you're not in business with someone who doesn't know how to run the company or run the business, right? It has no value that they're bringing to that. So this really is a red flag. When we see something like this in an agreement, that tells us, okay, that's too wishy-washy, you know. And then they go on and they have funded with life insurance, which means that the cross-purchase agreement could allow, if you and I were in business, Preston, you get $1.5 million at my death, you may choose not to use it to buy out my wife.
Sure.
That doesn't sound like a great plan, does it? In how partners would treat each other. So this is language that's in an actual buy-sell agreement that we're reviewing currently. And we went on to look at this agreement, and further down, it has a provision in here that gives the company the right and the ability to purchase life insurance. But it contradicts with the previous section. The company shall have the power to purchase and maintain insurance, including insurance on behalf of any covered person against liability asserted against such person incurred by covered person in any such capacity. So the company has the right to purchase insurance. Members hereby agree under their buy-sell provision to take out a life insurance policy on the other member that would cover the purchase of half the company assets in the event of death. These proceeds must be used for said buyout.
That must be is a little different than shall have the option, correct?
Correct. So you see the conundrum that this agreement now puts the parties in and how they're going to exercise this agreement. And what happens if the insurance isn't enough to cover half of the cost? There's no provision here that says what shall happen. So that is really a major concern when we get into buy-sell planning, that the agreement is structured properly. And many of the business owners do not know what their agreement says. So I'm going to share with you an agreement that we think is a lot better written, and how these provisions actually manifest themselves inside of an agreement. So this is an agreement that says, number one, if there's an involuntary transfer, here is how it's going to be valued. Here's how it's going to be transferred, and it covers things like medical assistance, nursing home assistance, transfer or attempted transfer as a result of divorce. All of those triggers that we talked about, those 7 triggers, we're starting to see that language manifest itself inside the agreement. And then we get to the death or disability of a member. And it says it shall be sold and purchased as in herein provided. Shall be sold. Not the option to purchase, it shall be sold and purchased based on the valuation. That's the language we would expect to see. Obligation of other members to purchase. Okay? The other members shall purchase from the decedent's personal representative or the member who is totally and permanently disabled. The decedent's personal representative of the member or the member who is totally and permanently disabled shall sell to the other members all of the membership interest owned by the decedent. That's pretty clear.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, and it sets how the valuation is set, and it comes back to also use of insurance proceeds, and it says that it ties the definition of disability to a disability policy, so that the insurance company decides if the partner, the member, is truly disabled. They decide versus you think I'm disabled, and you might think that every day, Preston. I know. I don't talk like someone from West Tennessee, right? So,
That's correct.
You may think I'm disabled, but how do partners decide that one partner? It becomes very emotional. So we recommend an insurance policy, even if it's a buy-sell disability policy, and use the language, the definition of disability, and allow the insurance company, if you qualify for benefits, you're considered totally disabled. And then put the terms of how long that would be. And then lastly, you see here the payment of the balance of the purchase price. If the insurance is inadequate, or you have a member that comes in that's uninsurable, then you may need to make terms over periods of years to protect the ongoing cash flow of the business through the buy-sell agreement. So that is really an important item, that if the insurance is insufficient to the value, in the case that we are doing right now, they have $1.5 million life insurance policy, but the value of the company is a little over $4 million. Plus there's some debt that has to be repaid. Well,
Right.
you're short on your insurance. Does it allow you to make terms so that if it's less than $250,000, the balance shall be paid in 5 years, $250,000. If it's more, it can be paid out over 10 years, giving the surviving members and that company the option to spread those payments out over years and keep the company running. So that's an important piece, that you don't shutter the doors of the company because they don't have the liquidity and the cash flow to do the buyout.
Correct. And Dan, you must be a mind reader, because my next question I have down was going to ask you about the adequacy of the provision, which you kind of already hit on. So I will ask another question. You mentioned, obviously, that we see the language, it talks about death and disability, and you mentioned a disability buyout policy. We've got some advisors that are listening in today, and they're working on, say, a buy-sell life insurance plan for a business or business owners. Would it not be more cohesive to go ahead and incorporate maybe a disability buyout while they're already working on it, especially as we see the language in this contract mentioning life and disability?
Yes, and I think that's part of a good, well-written plan, is to have that option available. Even if it's not sufficient to fully fund the buyout, at least have the definition of the policy, or an individual disability income policy's definition. If you're qualifying for benefits, then you're considered completely and totally disabled.
Right. And you kind of mentioned the life insurance amount, let's say inside that buy-sell not being adequate as far as the amount. So the next question is shortfalls and excess proceeds, right? What strategies can be employed if insurance proceeds are insufficient for a buyout or if they exceed the buyout amount?
But you can certainly obviously, you could set aside money, have a sinking fund for a rainy day event that comes. Most companies don't have that kind of excess capital where they're sitting around on that. They can go out and borrow if they're in a financially capable position. Insurance is obviously a key part of that. Life insurance, disability insurance can help fund that. Life insurance with a chronic illness rider for that disabled partner can also be part of the solution process. It can also work for older situations, clients who are above age 65 and may not be able to qualify for a traditional disability income policy, where we can use the chronic illness rider. If you have a cognitive event, which is one of the things that many business owners look at and say, well, if they have a cognitive event, I don't want them making the business decisions in here. So if they qualify because of dementia or Alzheimer's or one of the cognitive impairments, then the death benefit is available to start buying them out as well. So a lot of different ways we can create that, but you also have to build in, if insurance is not an option, then terms, so that the beneficiaries or the disabled partner takes the benefit, the buyout over a period of years, defined by the size of the buyout, obviously.
Sure. And you mentioned borrowing money. I mean, I've borrowed some money myself, and Dan, I don't know about you, but any amount that I've ever borrowed, I always paid back more than what I borrowed because of the interest. I would venture to say 99% of the time, the life insurance premiums are never going to exceed the face amount or death benefit amount of the policy that you buy, correct?
Well, that's correct. You're going to get cost recovery on that. That's always part of that. But even a term in a buy-sell agreement, many times it also puts an interest rate in, because the person selling the shares is taking their payment over a period of years, so they're acting as the bank. But it just puts the provision there that you don't have to go out to a lender, and it's more favorable terms, if you will.
Right. And when we're talking about a specific amount in either a shortfall or excess, my next question is valuation review, right? So when we're looking for that amount, how often should business valuations be conducted to ensure that buy-sell agreements remain relevant and effective?
Well, I personally believe every couple of years that you should be going through that. At E4 Insurance Services, we have 6 partners. So every year we establish the value of our firm, and so we pay for evaluation each and every year, and we don't use the informal process, but for many businesses can use what our insurance carriers offer, which is an informal business valuation, at least to see that they're on track, and depending on the assumptions that they have. Farming operations many times do have a valuation every year because they're going out for lines of credit, and so that is reviewed as part of their operations. But closely held sometimes can be a little bit loosey-goosey as far as how they establish that value. You have to be very careful. I've seen it where I had 2 partners that formed an LLC. The buy-sell agreement said it was book value. After a while, they came across some land that they wanted to purchase in the western Dakotas during the oil boom. They bought it, they developed it, and they ended up with $36-some million of value there, plus some blue sky. They never considered the fact that the LLC wasn't created and the buy-sell had never been updated to take into consideration the types of assets that they now had inside the LLC. So the book value was much less, and they almost turned white when we pointed out, ghost white, that they would be selling out for pennies on the dollar if one of them died.
Sure.
So you got to be very careful about how you set the valuation. So it's very good to review because things change, businesses change, their focus change, assets within the business can change, and it can change the terms of the buy-sell and what needs to be addressed.
Sure. And when we're talking about that informal business valuation or a business valuation that someone would go out and pay for a cost, I want to really hone in more on the informal side, obviously, because that's something that we can help with, right? So additional services such as that valuation, what, I guess, insurance, what does that provide or support to the clients in that buy-sell planning?
Well, I have a meeting this afternoon with the firm that has that buy-sell that has the incomplete language. And we sent over to them Principal Financial Group's informal valuation, 3 years of tax returns. We're gathering that this afternoon, but it's really a very simple process to get 5 different methodologies of how to value the business, and then an average of those to at least get the idea. Are we on track? Many of the buy-sell agreements say that you're going to take an appraiser, or you're going to have 2 appraisals done if one of the members were to die. So to at least have the idea of where they're at, and then to make the language consistent, right? So again, if we find that the informal valuation says that the business is worth $5 million and they only have $1.5 million, what's the plan, Preston? What's the plan if something were to happen? We have a shortfall. And
That's right.
And that's where we can come in, add additional insurance, take a look at that review process.
Yeah. And one final question, I'll make it a 2-part, right? So the evolution of these agreements, right? How should buy-sell agreements evolve as business grow or change in the ownership and structures over time, if you will? And then also, how can any advisors listening to this call, how can they benefit from using our E4's buy-sell risk calculator?
Well, let's go to the risk calculator. First of all, having us involved in the conversation, having Ronnie Hamilton brought in early on when you're having a conversation with business owners to help us talk about, it all starts with evaluation. Any buy-sell starts with evaluation. You've got to know what the value is, and then how are we going to split it up, right? What are those trigger events that would cause us to need to buy out the other member, other partner, other shareholder? That's got to be reviewed and looked at. Then with Ronnie and the team of people we have to be able to go through and review the buy-sell agreement. For Brady Serold, our disability income senior VP, to look at the language for the triggers on the disability side, which most financial advisors walk right past. I did it for a lot of years myself. I focus in on the life insurance piece. Hey, let's fund the life insurance. That's really obvious. The definition of death is pretty clear. We know when someone has passed away, and we can come up with a value from a life insurance policy. The definition of disability can be much more difficult to come up with, and a lot of agreements do not have quality definitions. So our team of people can be with the advisor putting all that together. But how do you quantify the risk? That's the other question. And so I want to share on our E4 website. Bear with me. Are you seeing?
I am. Yep.
The website. So this is under, when you log into our E4 website, you'll come to the dashboard, then go over to the sales concepts. And if you scroll down, buy-sell planning for business owners in the very bottom left corner, and use the calculator. What is the real risk to a business? And so we'll do a 53-year-old. We'll do a 47-year-old, and we have a 40-year-old female. There is a 25.7% chance that one of those owners will die based on the mortality tables. Okay, this is, again, based right out of the tax facts, and looking at the mortality tables, what is the odds that one of those business owners will pass away? A 25.77 chance. Now, if we go to 5 business owners and a 53-year-old male, 47, 40, 40 female, and a 49, now you've got almost a 40% chance that one of these owners will not be with the firm through death at age 67, by 67. That really speaks to the need for protection for the remaining business owners to be able to buy out, and for the beneficiaries of each of the business owners, so that there's liquidity there for the continuity to go forward. This can be put into a PDF, and when you run this, it's something that you can show, print off, and show the odds. With 5 minutes known, the odds of death before 67 is 39.75%. This is it's based on the 2017 CSO mortality table, using age nearest birthday. This is really what your business owner should be addressing when they look at that risk.
That's pretty powerful, especially if you've never used it or seen it before. I like that. Well, Dan, any last thoughts before we wrap this up? And again, we appreciate you coming on and speaking with us today. I think that's been good, especially for any advisor that's working on a buy sell or has worked on them before. Again, some of the questions that are asked, maybe the last time they've reviewed a buy sell that they put in place or funded for a business owner, it's been several years ago. Heck, even if it's been 2 years ago, I think it's time to re-review that or contact the business owner. I think we had Lincoln on 2 weeks ago when we talked about the Connolly versus IRS. No better time than now to actually get with that business owner. Wouldn't you agree?
I do. And you can develop centers of influence with this, whether that's CPAs, whether that's bankers, lending officers. You go to you sit down and have lunch with a lending officer at a local bank, and ask them if they've ever seen one of their business owner clients die without a well-structured buy-sell plan. Most of them that have had that experience never want to see one of their clients go through that. Now, you don't have to be an expert. You can be a financial planner. You can be an insurance agent. You can be doing all of this. But when you're in that situation, when is the last time you reviewed? And we've got a team of people. We've got all of these resources available to help you have that conversation and make sure that your clients are taken care of, that their agreements make sense, that their agreements address the things we would expect to see in those agreements, so that obviously the continuity of the remaining business owners and also the beneficiaries of the deceased or disabled are most taken care of.
I agree. So as we wrap up, I'd like to remind everyone that today's brew and our entire library are recorded and shared on the brew page on our website at www.e4.insurance. Today's recording will also be posted to our brew page, added to our library, and emailed to advisors later. Next week, we'll wrap up our March lineup of buy sales with myself and Phil Hogg, the senior sales president, to discuss protecting and closing the sale with buy-sell opportunities. You won't want to miss that. If you're looking for ideas, opportunities, questions that are going to be asked, I encourage you to log on next Wednesday for that call. And Dan, if you don't have anything else.
Well, Preston, I want to thank you for hosting. I know we're having each of our regional vice presidents take a subject matter this year for a month, and you've been doing a great job. I would like to protest the choice in colors and logos that you wore today. You may offend a few people across our footprint since we're coast to coast, but we know of your love for the Tennessee Volunteers. But thank you very much for hosting.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Dan. And it is it's the SEC men's basketball tournament, so I just felt it was appropriate to wear those colors. Hopefully, it brings us good luck. So
good luck to your team.
Anyway, that's my justification for it. So with that being said, again, thank you everyone for tuning in today. We'll see you next week on the Brew Call.
Thank you, Preston.